Welcome to our lovely future humans, to our 5D collective, to those who do know, intelligent minds. We are the wise adults, which is also why we know that advanced societies don't fall for mass delusion. We've been talking about this, and so we do meet others where they're at, whether it's the real you or the fake you. Obviously, at IHP, we're going to have the real yous because we do be yourself the smart way, stable, mature, adaptive, rational, teachable. Also, because I've been doing my best with shorts to let you know what it is to be a future human, and the only reason we use those words are because our 4D, 3D brothers and sisters, oh, they don't know we're here. So, mediocre minds come up with mediocre explanations. Intelligent minds come up with the fact that we're not mediocre and our society continues to evolve as it always has. And so, with that, we stay grounded in reality. As lovely Sam Harris points out, that means that we know any of our cherishable beliefs can be falsifiable. I have only one belief. I am a believer in God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, and all of the spiritual plane. I'm a mystic, and I know science. And I know what you are made of and I'm made of. And I am not going to be convincing anybody, because that's exactly why, as Bezel van der Kolk points out, dysregulated people, you don't convince them. And also, I have an ego of my own. So yeah, personal and spiritual growth is for people who are going to be doing it. And I never do anything half-assed. Maria, I'm a healthy perfectionist. So, I make a lot of grammar mistakes, fuck up words and all that shit, but I'm saying I don't actually offer services like marketing and mentorship and content creation for mindset exercises that I don't know can be helpful. I just know that the only ones who are growing for real are the same ones who are going to be emotionally intelligent, which is why they're not thinking in ways of, oh my God, our society's doomed. No. And also for those who are mystics in the 5D enlightenment realm, we're like, yeah, we're doing great. And we're going to have some channel guidance, food for thought at some point. So in the meantime, let me read to you. Welcome aboard. And please let anyone know if they like to do personal and spiritual growth for real. Let them join us here at IHP. You can become a paid subscriber on Spotify that has inner growth mindset exercises, readings, and spotlights. We have digital products coming up, and I'm going to be using PayHip for now. So we're going to have some mindset exercises. We also have our 8th and 9th chakra we're working on. And then I forget, but the holidays are also amongst us, so we might have a little bit of a break. So there comes a point, as I want to share, that whether it is for those who did deep therapeutic work or those who are doing and consistently got to do embodied work, we will notice something. As we are growing and expanding consciousness, because personal and spiritual growth is that, and you pursue more of emotional mental intelligence, you are going to be amongst those who are refusing it. Okay, so it's not a moral question. It is a nervous system and self-sovereignty one. It is not a good or bad. It is a infinite higher human consciousness potential capacity, and that's why it's a choice. But it's a choice that, as you have been hearing from me, is not so straightforward. So when you have done the work, or when your body-mind connection stayed alive, self-led here, okay, you kept aliveness, and that means you know how to self-regulate. And so you also maintained honesty, integrity, and that's why the bilateral integrated brain doesn't fall for, and vertical and overall, effective realism. And that's why we know the difference between those who are truth tellers and liars, which is why society doesn't have a problem with mass delusion. It has basically two groups: wise adults, and then the rest, who, if they want to continue playing their adaptive child part roles, they're going to do so. I use new stories: Peter Pan, Lost Boys, Pinocchio. Okay, so we see clearly and are in a constant state of growth, and that's thanks to integration. And with integration, you also know self-regulation and co-regulating. And so it doesn't matter if you're with one person who's dysregulated or a bunch. You're not going to hide away at home because of you thinking there's energy vampires, dark auras, or some shit like that, which are where the spiritual bypassers and anybody who's going to stick to the there's bad energy and bad spirits and good spirits, and there's a whole story for that one that won't be right now. But in the meantime, with integration and your restored embodiment, you will get to see, like I do, those who won't choose therapy, those who won't choose personal and spiritual growth, those who won't choose self-inquiry or self-awareness, those who won't choose accountability, emotional and mental intelligence, those who won't choose self-regulation and restorative embodiment, those who won't choose to notice we're not in a time that is actually disruptive. We're in a time that is consistently moving into a new time. So there's not this whole these people are evil, or these people cannot do that which is called choose to grow emotionally intelligent and to stop being manipulated. Yeah, this is the thing. They don't think they're being manipulated. They look at people that are integrated and think that we are wielding mouth in ways that are, and it's like, okay, you don't believe in science. I see. Stephen Porges, Dr. Daniel Siegel, the ones who actually continue doing research, decentralizing the self, Patrick McNamara. Okay, so it's clear, not a delusion. It's subjective reality based on their stories. So they are not oblivious to the topics of trauma and somatics. They are not oblivious to our health. They are choosing to wield their mouths in ways that are, I'm going to dismantle with my one little finger, modern day therapist. They're trying to imprison me. Equanimity. Those are spiritual bypassers. They're not real. So every single bit of ventral energy, they're refusing it. By like the back of their hand, they're saying it's dangerous to have no emotions. You physically can't have no emotions. You can have emotions last 90 seconds when that's how the bright sides of neuroplasticity. So going with the flow. Which is why a Zen master who tells you he has laundry and doesn't believe that you can be enlightened in Enlightenment Soul Age group, he's not a Zen master. He just wears a title, and he's there for the ones who cry like he does. A cynic who believes that his saying, I want it to be a world with what about what is right, not what feels right. We're all feels, dude. Your feels. That's called effective realism without the person noticing that they're in it. When your feelings are so strong that you feel them as fact. I dealt with that when I was a teenager, and it's very not interesting. So, self-regulating human beings, the ones who discern, we're not buffooned, we're not manipulable, and that's why advanced societies, they're not manipulable either if it's advanced. If it's not, that's why it's basically not advanced. But people who wield their words in mediocre ways, they're the only ones who continue to use such, that's I'm going to pause. So, non-integrated brain people, they confuse discernment with contempt. They confuse clarity with collapse into superiority. They confuse grief with judgment. They confuse compassion without compliance with letting people get away with things. That's also why they actually think that they can say words like this, lack of imagination for evil, and make sense. I laugh at that. That's the wielding of the words of a person who doesn't know there's no evil in the way of your philosophical, religious, ancient textbooks. If you had looked at Michael Stone, Forensic Criminology Scale, they all are weak ones who need therapy. All of them. And anybody who wants to use the word grace with the undeserving thing, no, everybody deserves love, and everybody is a human being, and as a child of God, I don't play God. We're all in flesh. So they forget. The people who want to play like they're God or divinity, they forget their role. They're not it. They're a vehicle. And so every single brother and sister of mine can, if they want, choose to access their kindness. They can, because there's people who work with every single bit of bad behavior, which are maladaptive patterns of behavior. So I don't need to cast a stone. And that's why anyone who's playing with words, they lack the education for that which evil is. It's a poor 3-year-old who got shamed or some shit went down, and it's not something that is not workable. No, we have plenty of modern day therapists who care. The actual people who care about our species helps people to be able to coexist with our species. The ones who don't care but they like their little groups will tell you that it's impossible or not now. So weak ones will give you an excuse, and then they will want to continue with their little dopamine hits that are gratifying because one's a good team and one's a bad team. There's your Cain and Abel. There's your insecure people who don't know that all of God's children are all the same. So whenever I hear that, yeah, that's why as a person who's in communion with God, I got taught Jesus, Holy Spirit, Holy Trinity, you forgive, you don't cast stone, you don't play it, and spiritual bypassers continue to forget. If anyone were it, then we'd all be doing great and dandy right now. So you're not here to play God and embody it the way that the spiritual bypassers talk about it if you're a messenger. Obviously, if you're playing pretend and playing house, well, there you go. So it'll be clear to an intelligent mind who is mystical and spiritual who the bypassers are. And then it'll be clear why science is a partner with spiritual ones, because they prove that every one of our brothers and sisters can access the kingdom of God within him. Doesn't mean they want it. Everyone can access that enlightenment seed. Sadguru enlightenment seed, King of God, Jesus. I forget to quote sometimes, but the ones who confuse grief with judgment, compassion without compliance with giving people pass, are the same ones who don't understand that their adaptive child part is rigid and still living out their own past trauma. They're projecting their trauma on society, on humanity, on every single bit of anyone, and their harshness and their rigidity and their unforgiveness and their manners in and of themselves. Children who are treated like that, which is why I would never treat someone like that. My mother taught me manners, and I'm a child who got to cry like a child, is able to get angry and all of the feelings without ever being fear-mongered, or whatever the word is, by a human being big. No, actually, I got taught, here, I'm going to stand up for you and defend you when a babysitter scared my twin and I. And she didn't do it by shaming. No, she stood up. So when you're a child and you had a child-centered environment, you look out there and you say, yeah, I know what the bad grown-ups are. They're all the ones who are still using Lucifer stories and still being unforgiving and harsh and mean. And they're mean because they were being meaned to by a grown human being who didn't give them self-regulation, gave them dysregulation, bad manners. And so emotional, manipulative, they're all under the same spell. They're all non-bilaterally integrated buffoons, which is why the advanced society doesn't fall for mass delusion. And it's not mass delusion, it's their subjective reality based on their own unfortunate business from home. So they're actually standing with the Wendy's and the Peter Pans with their resentment and charges, and they actually think with their effective realism, or one or two words, oh, it is right, now it feels right. It's a cynic. You're a cynic with a destructive mindset who doesn't think people can randomly just cry. And you actually chose, so when he's using his books, propaganda, rhetoric, I'm like, oh, there's the one, let me do show and tell. I'm talking to morons who can believe everything that comes out of my mouth. So when people actually are doing the adaptive child part wielding of their mouths, a person who's intelligent is like, wow, that's another interesting teenager that I got to watch on TV. Because they're teenagers, because the 16-year-old, they're proving themselves. So yeah, their entire mannerisms are a complete visible way that their poor 3-year-olds got shamed. So now they can't actually see those of us who have the childlike manners. They're like, that's a red flag. Patrick Tian points out, when somebody actually sees a child being treated like a child, that's a spoiled little brat. They need to scare the shit out of them. I see people who think that those manners that those parents want to use, it's a good thing that I am not near, and I try to be away from all of it. And I actually completely know the smart therapists know how to explain a third attunement, repairing ruptures, and that's because they work with emotionally immature parents, the ones who are dysregulated, to help them also to learn to self-regulate. So it's the people who are parents who care, they are getting themselves to self-regulation. The parents who don't care because they don't believe in science, yes, we know there's parents who don't take their children to hospitals. So I'm not going to support any kind of let's bring the legacy of trauma into the future. I'm going to spell it out. It's not fun to see human beings who are grown human beings not notice that they have a problem with crying, men, women, and theys, and that they have a problem with anger. Problem because they don't know how to wield any of that which is their actual child and be vulnerable with us. So they don't know how to use their body, their mind, and you will notice they are harsh, rigid, unforgiving. They have manners that are beyond a bejesus. They're not delusional. They'll give you every single bit of ancient history books and call you demonic and stories and all that. And they actually are in the effective realism, like the spiritual bypassers, where they believe they're energy vampire stories, or that there's a low frequency or high frequency, versus looking at their embodied brain, which is not yet integrated. So they can't handle the charges of their own body, let alone when they're channeling and downloading, which I know all about. But that's for another story and another time. So contempt and self-righteousness, that's all they know. Their right and wrong, good and bad stories got distorted for them, which is why they want to treat little kids like shit. And they continue to think that the ones who are making them soft don't know how to teach them grit. Instead, we do know how. Because it's called firm kindness. So you are emotionally present and you understand that there's a difference between a 0-1-year-old, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old. So you don't expect the child to be emotionally mature in any way, shape, or form. You are going to be self-regulating and handling every bit of the tantrums that a kid will have. If you can't do that, you're not then self-regulating. So yeah, believe me, I don't have children, don't want them. And when my friends have seen me near some, they are like, you don't like kids. I'm like, no, it's not that. It's that I pick up on their nervous system and it reminds mine of panic attacks, and I'm really disrupted by it. So I just need to really concentrate to apply differentiation as it's happening. The the biosphere. So Dr. Daniel Siegel, he taught me how to use more different. You need to differentiate more, Maria. Okay, I'll do that. So yeah, the 4D. I don't go out because there's all those energy vampires. I scan a room. That was your opportunity to actually self-regulate, differentiate, and then continue co-regulating. But hey, let me not tell you that. And actually, it's better if you go to EMDR, child parts work, and somatics first. Yeah, that's actually, excuse me, very important. So here, it's once you're healed, you have a window of welcome to yourself. When someone looks at you like this, when you say there's no energy vampires, that's what I said. I said, you told me you're working with a therapist. Good. When you're done and you own your sense of self, they will tell you when you're fully integrated, you have wholeness, your personality patterns, all of it, then come back around, because now I know you'll know what it means to be embodied. Then I'll be able to repeat myself, and you'll know what differentiation and self-regulating in the midst of a whole room of a bunch of children while it's happening and working against your panic attacks where I'm going to die with. So it's really uncomfortable, but you can do it. So when come back around whenever that time is, and that's where the person will come back around at some point. So what these non-bilaterally integrated brain people were modeled were grandiosity, self-righteousness, and dysregulation. They were not modeled humility, integrity, or safe self-regulation. And so they lack the capacity to discern, to be equanimous, and then they don't hear themselves when they speak, and they justify their maladaptive patterns of behavior, from drinking to binge eating to binge watching to scrolling to all of it, the destructive mindset. You better bet that it's not fascinating. Since they weren't given a safe biosphere, Terry Real uses the word biosphere or MUI, so they were around a dysregulated and grandiose pattern of behavior, they could not be met with their childlike environment. So I, on the other hand, had that, and you don't lose any of that innocence, and you also know what right and wrong is, and good and bad is like, from a perspective of innocence, versus the little self-righteous energy, which is where you have those individuals who, again, are treating children like grown-ups, and they're not. They're actually completely different from every single bit of how they will be perceiving life. And the ones who, with their left brain, refuse to understand the explanation continue to be the very same emotionally immature human beings who don't understand that they're disregarding science, and they like to say we don't believe in it. So you just allow yourself to remember they're going to pass down the baton of their self-righteousness and their charges. We will work always together as a species to evolve. So the personal growth for them got shut down. They're shutting it down for their children and others who will come potentially across them. But the ones of us who know what personal growth is made of, we will continue to instead talk about healthy relationship to the emotional body, healthy relationship with vulnerability, healthy childlike centric environment. We won't cast a stone on those who got the unfortunate end of the stick. Presenting, we don't need to justify drama kings and drama queens. Those who are hooked on their very bad manners can continue to do so. Let's stop blaming monsters, and please, let's stop doing that. There's not a perfect way for anything, but for sure, children are emotionally immature. So their tantrums, I don't like to be around them, but I wouldn't think a parent is actually having their child be spoiled. Now, I'm going to say I don't have a right to say any of that, but you better bet I'm happy to see the little kid having the tantrum and then being handled to the best of the way of a third attunement, repairing ruptures, and helping them to become an emotionally mature person, because you're going to help them become an emotional manager, and it's in a right way, which again is not like one linear perfect way. So personal growth gets shut down for the kids that weren't given the opportunity to be vulnerable. So now they protect themselves against their own emotional body and vulnerability, because that's what they learned. That's why Bessel van der Kolk says you don't talk sense to them. So only self-righteous energy as what they have, and the bad manners that they were treated with, and then they go around treating others like that, and that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. So the world is a bunch of either emotionally mature groups of people, or those emotionally immature ones who are reactive and continue in fact to do that, and they don't know healthy love, they don't know forgiveness, they don't know integrity. They were denied it all. So it is up for those of us who have healthy love and integrity to be able to continue vibing at the 5D frequency, which is really just the love frequency, which is really AKA mental energy, which is a human being's makeup, and that which a restorative embodiment person can do. So the ignorance, cognitive dissonance, structural dissociation, unhealed trauma, and herd mentality are obvious to those of us who have intelligent minds. It's why our society continues to advance. We have the smart group, and then we have the other group. And the other group, well, their capacity to discern is not within their grasp. For they are not sovereigns of their nervous system. They're not sovereigns of their self. They're not sovereigns with integration. They do not have body-mind connection. They just have words, blah, 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 blah. Discerning is unique to those of us who are able to self-regulate. And so with our self-regulation, we're able to notice when our emotions come up. Then we're able to continue a conversation and to respect differences. On the other hand, the willingness to move from dysregulation and modulation to self-regulation and restorative embodiment is not obvious to the people who don't like therapy, who don't want somatics therapy, who don't take trauma seriously or healing, who don't believe in childhood trauma, and who don't believe in treating children like children, emotionally helping them to become managers, but instead wanting to, do the things that our ancestors did. So a mediocre mind, please, let's remember, it is not a sinful mind. Let's not even use those words the same way. Let's try to make it very clear. We're not in the medieval times, okay? No monsters. All mediocre minds are non-bilaterally integrated. They have structural dissociation, which means they don't have access to the sense of self. It's not even whole. Let alone do they have access to their body. No, they have an adaptive child part who is still defending that which is their core wounds. They do not have the capacity to tune into the wise adults. They justify and validate their maladaptive patterns of behavior. They justify and validate how they want to treat children like the ancient times and tell us that therapists are trying to manipulate us and to make us into the wrong type of herd. I mean, really, it's not hilarious. You just think, wow, that left brain has millions of ways to not notice that it's going against every bit of intelligence, because knowledge, it continues to build. It doesn't die. And yesterday's books aren't as valid as today's books. They accompany, and then we learn new things. And sometimes the old things are wrong. And if you can't welcome that, well, then you're not intelligent at all. Like, you're an emotionally reactive person who doesn't need to, you don't want to be here. We don't get reactive with any books. We'll know that we continue to learn things, and that's why scientists are the awesomest of awesome. So mediocre minds adapt the child part, and they are those who have a body-mind disconnect. They just like to talk, and they like to use their self-righteous, contemptuous energy to protect themselves from every single bit of vulnerability and feeling alive. Their child and their teen started to actually use inner critic, outer critic, drinking, drugging, fucking. So their mediocre mind and lifestyle choices, not moral failures, just a actual natural outcome of dysregulation and unexamined maladaptive patterns of behavior. They justify them by watching movies and saying that that's normal, like with gender stereotypes, and like when I've seen people say, yeah, yell in my face, make me into man, and thinking that that is actually going to make them into man or woman. Or what was it? Yes, fraternity, sororities, a bunch of, so when I see emotionally immature people allowing themselves to be treated like shit, I'm like, yeah, I mean, if I take seriously my profession, I'm going to take seriously my profession. I won't say that the being treated like a little piece of shit is going to make me into anyone. That's not actually what allows me to become. No, it's a third attunement, repairing ruptures, and then me continuing with the inner growth mindset, not a destructive one, to expand. And that's why, and that's because you're self-regulating. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of, so yes, when you are embodied and integrated, welcome aboard, lovely being yourself people, we will notice the destructive behaviors and the bad manners for what they are. Children who didn't get taught how to be wise adults with compassion. Children who didn't get treated with firm kindness while they were being taught right and wrong, or good and bad with firm kindness. No, they got treated in ways that were completely grandiose and unnecessary. And the right way for a child to learn how to be good or bad is not by creating fear in their eyes and silencing them. That actually just has them grow up to become what are a bunch of people who continue to do it. Whenever I see it, I actually am completely turned off. And I am, completely like, I don't want to be near that. So a securely attached, self-led child, teen, and grown-up, we don't need others, especially those types of people, to see us, and we don't need to feel seen in general. soothed, safe, or secure. We lead with our authentic self, and that's because we want to be ourselves, because we're not afraid. We're not ashamed of ourselves, and we don't have the unsatiating, self-loathing, gut-wrench, torn apart pressure here. So we are very sad when we don't bond with people, but we know that we can always respect differences and we can repair ruptures. And so every bit of our whole self is loved and protected and tended to, even when we got these assholes in a room. We don't shame them. We don't shame ourselves. We don't hide. We don't, take it down a notch, but we'll learn how to recalibrate relationships based on if we're around people who are real or fake. And, it is what it is. So thanks to our body-mind connection, our nervous system sovereignty, and ownership of our whole sense of self, we create resilience in our restorative embodiment. We have wholeness, which leads our capacity to choose personal and spiritual growth, and have fun with it, by the way. Like, it gets better and better. With oversoul, twin flame, soulmates, your life just continues to become more meaningful with or without others, because you have meaning. Use your name, and so you know that you live a life of meaning and connection beyond the solo self, like the true spirituality life brought to life. Dr. Daniel Siegel taught me this definition because he got invited to a spiritual conference, and he's like, but I'm science. And they said, yeah, but you live a life of meaning, connection beyond the solo self. So we all, with integration, intelligence, with integrity, humility, and as wise, empowered, enlightened adults, teach children. Yes, we have good children, and then we have bad children who need help to learn how they can be good. Do we have all people who want to be on board with being good, meaning with being their best self? No, we don't. But those bad ones aren't going to learn good and kind if you treat them like shit, because that's called silencing a bunch of people, which is why we find ourselves consistently looking at the same charges. So when it's conversation in ventral vagal state, that's where it is at. Not everybody chooses it. So again, we continue as a species to evolve, which is why nobody is shocked and thinking our society needs to be called advanced or not advanced, and that our society falls for mass delusion or doesn't. There's a bunch of people who are not intelligent. They don't know how to use their brain because they don't know how to be themselves. And that is why their mediocre minds are mediocre lifestyles. And they do not choose growth. They do not choose their A game. We do. We do not choose to do, let me justify my immature emotions, unlike what they do, which is, I have a right to be angry. You neutral people, you're all the problem. It's okay. So we don't condone emotionally immature behavior or meanings. We don't call it good or evil. We don't use any kind of dehumanization. We just understand that those who are blinded by effective realism are blinded by that which is their own emotional stuff, and that's for a reason. So we're free of effective realism and of emotional immaturity. We don't try to convince others to see us for who we are, and so you don't try to be understood by them. You definitely don't need or look for their validation, or anyone's for that matter, because it's kind of like, just being you with thoughts and opinions and feelings. That's a differentiated self. And so embodied and integrated, that's what it's like, FYI. I've known it my entire life. So we are alive with our childlike open-heartedness. We don't actually hide our spontaneity. And we are not bypassing. While the spiritual community, who calls neutral, equanimous, discerning, loving human beings bypassers, they're actually upset at a bunch of people. And I'm going to just let you know that, no, wholeness is not bypassing. Wholeness, integration, and embodiment is what you will be. 5D Collective, welcome aboard. Being yourself the smart way, aka just a human being who has mental health, and so you can't manipulate them, because mental health means I can't be manipulable by anyone. And that's because a nervous system will tell me if somebody is whole, if they own their sense of self, if they're differentiated, and if they have nervous system sovereignty or not. And the minute of truth is, excuse me, you confuse and find spirituality. No, I'm not. I have fun with anyone who's basically anyone, so it's not a big deal. But you'll know that they are intelligent when they're like, wow, Maria, look where we're at. And that's between mystic, spiritual, and mindful. So you don't grieve what could have been with anyone or anything. You process it, by the way. You don't grieve the conversations that won't happen. No, you actually laugh when you think you're having a conversation that then ends up being not a conversation. That's happened more than once, and now that I've finally settled into that one, I'm like, okay, let's remember that for the future, just so we don't get into thinking we're actually having a conversation. You do not grieve the wholeness and humanity that remains dormant within the individuals who refuse restored embodiment and integration. You do not grieve never meeting their actual child and who they could have been. Yeah, it's actually sad. I think they'll never meet that innocence. But then again, it's so scary for them that maybe it's best that they don't revisit it, because that might be just how horrendous their home was, to the point of where they can't. I can't even imagine. I saw what happens to kids, and that's because of the ability to get attachment trauma educated. So it's really just like, yeah. But it would be amazing. I see the ones who are healing. There's a lady who's all excited. She's like, I'm at 7 years. They told me it could take 10 or 12, but I'm almost there. And she's happy. That's what you want to see. Somebody's ready to see themselves. And she's not hiding herself. And a 3-year-old who's whole right here will always say, wow, I'm so excited. I get to meet them. All of them. Yay. You know, but if they, like, then you're like, oh, let's leave alone the asshole teenager. That's all they are. So yeah, there's a bunch of asshole teenagers. I met them when I was 1. I was not an asshole teenager. And I was completely in love with my little sister when she came around. In fact, she was our little mascot. Now that I'm grown, she tells some stories. I'm like, it didn't seem like you weren't having a good time. I kept buying you ice cream. But today she has a different feeling about that. But at the end of the day, we all know it's not our job nor our capacity to wake up people to their nervous system's sovereignty, meaning to their A game, and to their true self, because it's a personal thing. So we will grieve, accept, and let go of that which is. We won't get to know the real them. We'll meet the fake them. And it's not sentimental, it's structural, because the left brain brings in the common sense, and the right brain is on board with the left brain. And so the capacity for intelligent minds is that we can intellectually understand the concepts and the knowledge, and that's our free will choice, because we have clarity and discernment. Those who lack clarity and discernment don't really have free will, but they do have the capacity to notice their bad behaviors, like when they're talking down to people, when they're getting rigid, when they're all of it. But like my facade friend, he justified himself talking over me, and then he did it again. And so he doesn't know how to be himself. He still has his core wounds, but they're the ones who, in my subjective opinion, will miss out. But like I said, maybe that's just as hard as it is. Or, again, I'm just trying to be nice about it. But for me, they are choosing to refuse science, therapy, and the truth. In the meantime, telling those of us who know what the truth is, yeah, every one of us lives subjective reality. Scientists prove who's kind and who's unkind. They're not evil monsters. They were treated like shit. And more than just that. And if it was something in their chemistry, well, the scientists know how to help it now, not tomorrow. Now, neuroscientists, neurobiology, they have everything answered. So it's only ignorant ones who want to keep on dividing us into a good team and a bad team. And the morons who fall for it, that's why I call them morons. They're the same asshole teenagers I met. I don't look up to mediocre minds, and I don't look down. I look straight at them and think, do we have any homework? Ooh, and that's where you don't flinch when you like to be intelligent, and you actually find it humorous when someone wants to think, no, when they want to use the word intelligent, and they're dumbasses. As soon as they're coming in with some story, I'm like, you're a dumb idiot. You don't even notice that you have likes and dislikes that are ruling the bejesus out of you. And you're not an idiot because you're dumb. It's because that's the thing about emotionally immature people. I played the sword game once with my mouth. I did hurt their feelings. I didn't feel proud about it. So cowards will always be cowards. That's why you don't face a coward and think, let me make sure they know they're a coward. No, not only because, one, even if you call someone who's a coward in their face, they already feel like a piece of shit, which is why you're just reconfirming the shame that they grew up with. They grew up with that. They got treated like shit. They're going to continue feeling that that's how they deserve to be treated, number one. 2, you go against everything, thank you God, of what I learned from my good Christian Catholic upbringing. Also, you go against your own consciousness, because that just feels shitty to treat someone like a little piece of shit, because that's completely... A secure person knows what it means to actually treat someone like shit and feel like shitty about it. It's not even about guilt. It's like, that's how low you would stoop? I would not stoop low. Then I'd feel shitty about stooping low. And then I'm like, okay, how are you going to look yourself in the face? That's how it works when you have integrity as a logical person who knows what it means for those who don't want to do this shit, meaning to go get themselves help. I don't look down or up. I actually am intellectually aware. So with an equanimous heart, I tell you all, I do personal spiritual growth. The therapists are helping any of the brave ones who want to be themselves to do so. The ones who don't want to, I know our species history. They're not surprising. The masses, they're not deluded. They actually follow Wendy's and Peter Pan's and Pinocchio's. This is what a brain is going to tell you. And I'm like starting to laugh even more about how they don't notice they're following pseudo-intellectuals around, how they don't notice that they're continuing playing God and they're not God. As if they had been, they would have fixed everything magically immediately. When you hear someone say, oh, science proves magic, okay, wow, or science disproves magic, oh, they're playing with their words again. Look, oh, that team's happy, that team's happy, they all got validated somehow. Well, they are seemingly being happy to prove things to each other. So yeah, let's allow ourselves in this time of holiday season, especially thank you, Jesus. He taught me forgiveness. God taught me also love, and so did the Holy Spirit and my entire herd, my family, my loved ones, all of God's children. It's a beautiful day for those of us who want to be ourselves, of course. For those who don't, well, the capacity for us is to notice that the free will choice for some to refuse science and therapy and the truth about what they're missing out on, it's theirs. The capacity for us to process from our heart and body the charge of grief, so the charge of sadness, of not ever being able to meet the real person, and then to also be able to make peace with it. And that's why, as Dr. Daniel Siegel presents forgiveness, is that it's not post-traumatic growth, though. It's not traumatizing to meet people who don't want to be themselves. There's an explanation. So trauma is not the event that happens to you, number one. As Stephen Porges points out, it's the way your body responds to events. When you have a self-led body and an intelligent mind, therefore, you understand the explanation and you just think, thank you, God, for keeping me away from all those people for all these years. Thank you, God, for letting me get attachment trauma educated. Thank you, Peter Levine, for telling me about the bird and the wing. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you for making me a better human being who can treat any piece of, no, I won't say it, as we can all be pieces of shit. Thank you for helping me to treat every person the way that they're meant to be treated. And even when they're a stranger, you will look at them after they said, I'm a to be saluted. At least you looked at me and you'll feel happy. They got it off their chest, even though it had nothing to do with their upset. But maybe now they'll get over it, and hopefully they sleep better at night, because apparently they were harboring that shit for a whole 3 fucking years, and I'm a stranger, and I did what my men friends said I had to do. Be a fucking bitch, because apparently you can't just not want to be friends with someone. I mean, seriously, it's hilarious. No, it's not. It's, believe me, not hilarious when you meet people. The women said I should get in the face or give them a pat on the back. The men, again, the ones that are at least with integrity, said that you did a great job, because mixed signals is confusing. And, you know, you're a confusing person, Maria. So I honor at least the fact that the men can be honest with me. And I'm like, yep, I listen to y'all. I'm a bitch when I want to be so that I can be left alone. I don't think it has to be this way, but I'm not a man, so I can't even act as an example for man. We need more men that allow themselves to behave in ways that tell men to stop saying that it's how you said it, how you dressed, how you did it. We also need women to stop telling me, I don't want him, and then moving around to get on these people's laps. So there's men and women on all sides of a coin that need therapy and don't want it, and then they continue to point fingers at each other and talk about the gender stuff. And so it is what it is. This is a song that does in it our species, you know. We had the sex revolution, we had Elvis come in, we got a bunch of stuff, so now we're just continuing to evolve and expand, and it is our decision, again, to live without resentment, because we don't have to use resentment. Also, resentment is for the emotionally immature person who didn't learn how to self-regulate. So we know the truth about humanity and trauma. So yeah, there's no resentment, no stories, just loving without the need for our lovely other herd members to pay us back. Terry Real says that people pay you back for your biosphere. He works with couples, and I say, no, Terry Real, they don't, because those who will not choose body-mind connection for real won't pay us back. They'll continuously, for the rest of their lives, dysregulate and live distress, and we will pick it up, because that's what we pick up on our nervous systems, and I know all about it. And so does Tara Brach and Stephen Porges. So the ones who don't understand why we are part of nature and how our herd picks up on each other, and that's where, as Dr. Daniel Siegel points out, the we, when you are able to differentiate in the me plus we. And so we will self-regulate and stay whole, and that's why differentiating really works, as he pointed out. And an intelligent, embodied human does not need to dominate, correct, or rescue mediocre minds. Their familiar ways and unhealthy habits support their mediocre lifestyle in an effort to stay away from their own bodies. Their own bodies are very dangerous. They're not comfortable feeling, you see. So they're not comfortable with intimacy. They're not comfortable with growth, and they're not comfortable with aliveness. They're comfortable in pseudo-aliveness, low gratification dopamine hits. They don't care to mature a relationship with another human being because that is scary. So they don't want it. They will refuse science, therapy, and basically every single bit of truth about the trauma topics. Oh, in the meantime, they'll talk about body-mind connection and just be a part of trending topics. But organizing society or meeting around these non-bilaterally integrated mediocre minds is not something that will happen because they reject knowledge, because they refuse access to their body-mind connection, because they refuse emotional and mental maturity and intelligence. They will be completely part of groups like flat earthers and so forth and isolate. And, in the meantime, though, humanity is built not by erasing differences, but by respecting them and this thing called reality. We know what grounded in reality means. Thank you, Sam Harrison. Then we know what subjective reality and those masses do when they want to be all by themselves. And knowing that intelligent minds will always find a way to grow and keep our species moving along. Yes, we expand consciousness, we love, we live, we laugh, we learn. God is amazing, and all of his kids are perfect. The ones who don't want it, they're just not monsters. 2025, as we move forward, they're the cowards who don't go heal. Mediocre minds. I don't look up, I don't look down. Please don't talk about intelligence, though, as long as you're not sovereign in your nervous system. So the science proves it, not Maria, by the way. And they don't believe in the same scientists that I learned from. They only believe in the ancient ones, which is why it wouldn't be something that we would be having a conversation with. 4D and 3D will not be near any 5D. They will call us names like they always do. They will use the whole good and bad and then manipulate, and they're going to continue to not be around mature adults because healthy self-worth people will regulate and they won't put up with bullshit, meaning you don't treat me like a little piece of shit. And the ventral vagal stance is off-putting, and that's because it's actually a child that you're dealing with. It's not a human being grown up. They are in a very unfortunate state. So I'm not going to actually say I'm happy for them. I'm sad for them. They're not sad for them. And they actually think they could pull one over this person right here. And a lot more. So humility, it is coming with that, which is called a true warrior stance. I'll get to that in a minute. But mature adults, that's who builds our future. The ones who are intelligent, thanks to their clarity and discernment. The ones who have the capacity to know that whether it's with God or our human makeup, the science words, that our integrated, embodied humanness is mammalian heritage. It's not a special gift. Stephen Porges talks all about it. So the only ones who don't like to know that we're all the same and that we are all accepted as equals and that we're all deserving of love are the ones who didn't know that because they didn't get treated like that. Yes, we know good children and bad children. We know good grown-ups and bad grown-ups. Those words don't mean shit to a grown human being who knows intellect. They only mean shit to the same ones who use them the same way they always have. And so I'm going to let you know, bad is not bad. It's a poor human being who needs a therapist because they obviously didn't get taught manners the right way, which is very clear the minute they're acting like they are better than another group that got the short end of the stick. And when I see the suffering in the whole world, I know exactly where it comes from. That's exactly why it's the circle that never ends, but it's also the free will that God's give us. So as a process of grieving those who we will never get to meet, the real them, I want to share a couple of words. I see you clearly. I don't expect from you what you cannot give. I release you from being yourself. I accept that I will meet you where you are at. And this is not arrogance. This is not anything of we're better than anyone else. This is called integration, self-regulation, body-mind connection, nervous system sovereignty. I call it a functional inner child adult, 5D. I respect that word for myself as it's Christ consciousness, and Jesus taught me how to forgive. And he unfortunately didn't know about the ventral vagal state and how to differentiate. So he didn't know what he was feeling here. I know what he was feeling here because we're all humans, and as a herd, we want to bond. And the core wounds of all of those children who don't get themselves online is that they got rejected. And that wound is here. And so they're all angels with a hole in their heart. You can't make them delight or believe in themselves. You can't make them know why they are magical. And you can't make them know that science and spirituality prove that they can be the best version because they have their entire life to allow themselves to become a believer in themselves, to delight in themselves, to ground themselves in aliveness, to get full-blown conscious, romantic, love themselves, love all, integrate. Now finally with discernment, like, wow, my life was totally upside down. Earn their Merkaba, no dynamism, which is really fun because they have a flexible brain, and no authority, true authority. It is powerful, directed, realized, yet receptive, wise, and loving. So yeah, this is really amazing. Oh, and the true warrior thing I wanted to talk about. So I have a relationship with Orion and Enoch and more. And when you read about the Orion, I read this to you guys in a couple of, what was it, episodes or more ago. But Orion constellation, home to a number of higher beings dedicated to the evolution of our planet. They are, so Hunter, which means a highly masculine energy, and it's similar to the Lemurian energy though, and the Lemurians. And so they honor all beings, and they hold a space to help all of those who are wanting to maximize their potential to do so. And so the Lemurian seed, what you find out from the Lemurian civilization is that they lived in complete harmony with nature and connection, and so blah, 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 blah. But they talk about the feminine and masculine energy being one in a certain way. And that's where I wanted to say hunters and gatherers and people who are actually empowered as feminines, masculines, and our whole will know that any kind of anger, resentment, this low frequency, it narrows perspective because one, your brain is dumbed down, the hippocampus gets saturated with cortisol, and it fuels rigid narratives. Okay, so you choose the bright sides of neuroplasticity, and that makes your brain more elastic in you. If, on the other hand, you choose to condone your rigidity, your resentment, your unforgiveness, and those low frequency emotions, then you're going to use that past, and you're going to eventually just be what I call a grumpy old human being, and that's not a warrior. And that's also when I think of enlightened spiritual ones, yes, they know how to expand consciousness because they know how the empowered feminine, masculine, they're not against hunters or gatherers, they're not against the human species. So anybody who is consistently using a way about them as if we're made wrong, they're not able to know what year it is, the year 2025, and how societal culture goes through changes. So they're not looking at it from the intellectual perspective. I'm a humanities, social sciences major. I see the world. I'm not at odds with what I see, and I'm not afraid because I am common sense. So when I see someone who is from the same kind of field and they use their mouth in this way of and the presence of mass delusion, and they're wanting to talk about propaganda and rhetoric and all that. And why did I bring in warriors? Because I actually, as past lives, I've seen many of them, and one in particular, but really also what I know of as common sense from our lovely expert philosophical ancient ancestors. Let me find, there's one quote that I am looking to read to you all, but I'm gonna actually need to find it. I think it's in another one of my phones, and I've read it to you before, The Art of War, Sun Tzu. So when you do know what wisdom means, you understand why anyone who wants to even bother with that word, none of themselves, then they would learn how to harness all of their emotions. Otherwise, they're just bullshitting themselves. So I'm trying to explain why it's clear to an intelligent mind when you got ego in town, because ego doesn't know how to discern, because it's a reactive human being who's simply put an immature and insecure 0-8-year-old version of themselves. And Pat Ogden talks all about that non-metabolized trauma time, and I've seen it play out on a wheelhouse. It's not even, again, it's not funny because they are consistently over and over and over again. At a certain point, it becomes, you're a cog in a machine. And so, but I can't find the quote that I was looking for. So we will be back though at some other point. And in the meantime, those who are of our lovely, intelligent-minded collective, welcome. I'm sure we're going to get to every bit of intelligence. And as for the kids, I'm not worried because we have plenty of knowledgeable people who are open-hearted. I've met them in all my courses who are plenty going to give their free time. We're going to do whatever we can to help to support integration of the brain and restorative body, self-aware, accountable regulating. So I focus personal growth, spiritual growth. I just mention every now and then social sciences and humanities because I'm like, come on, people, get it together. Nothing's in danger. It's just a bunch of people who don't know how to own their emotions because they're emotionally manipulable. In fact, they'll tell you on screen, if they look away, the confidence will be eroded. There's the Achilles heel. They didn't get loved. In fact, they'll go on and tell us all about it, and they will notice that they're weak. And that's why you don't actually think of them as evil, Knievel, medieval. You just think, wow, poor unfortunate souls, so sad, but true. That one wanting to be pretty, that one wanting to get the girl. Do I help them? No, I don't. God keeps me away from them, and when they have come near me, I'm like, okay, so tarot, Akash Reiki is not going to be what you want right now. You just told me you had a psychotic break. You just told me you had dissociative disorder basically happen or something like that. So here's the deal: attachment trauma educated, personal spiritual growth, yes, but this doesn't need me. Good therapist, I can get you on board with it. No, okay, me, okay, look, I asked if I had permission. They said that I do because you feel safe with me, but I, on the other hand, I'm gonna tell you I don't feel safe. No, I won't say that. I would say we're going to have, like I have said, a therapist on call with us, or anyways, we're gonna do it together, like both, but no, by myself, no. So there's people who have come, again, just because it's trending to do an Akashic record reading for the past lives, the future lives, all that, or even just to know things about oneself. And I don't ever say no, but when I do hear some of the stories, I make sure they understand what attachment trauma education is. There's no evil, devils, demons, but if they're describing something that clearly is going to make me aware of needing more, I say we need more. And when they don't like it, in fact, they don't come back. But responsible, wise adults, whatever their profession, so marketer, mentor, content creator, podcast host, won't offer their services in the absence of continuously, one, educating themselves, becoming better at what they do and offer. Furthermore, they don't sales pitch people, and they don't sell crap. Because that's the reason why when I'm seeing professionals who don't give a shit, I know where we have a bunch of them. And typically they're offering crap. Or, excuse me, as they're ignorant of the entirety of their own field, they will offer you a little piece of it, and then you find out there's another missing piece. And I have had the services, like with my scoliosis. To this day, I am very upset. Because had they all worked together, those lovely scientists, I would have had a better guidance as I got older, and I still see them doing the same thing now. And guess what the scientists, some of them will say? But Maria, we need the experimental whatever blah 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 to repeat itself again and again. I'm like, okay, I get that part, but why aren't they all coming together? Why do their egos have to stop? So that's where I have met the ones who instead bring it all together. Those I appreciate. So those scientists, they care to help people with scoliosis, not give me their one model for everything. They will tell you every single bit of bejesus of everything, and they will work continuously with others. So that's when you know you got academics, professionals, researchers. Those of us who care about what we do, we don't stop learning, because that's the whole point. We know that learning information, replicable results, everything continues to build. And the ones who don't want research, academia, they don't want intelligence, yes. They're the ones who are not going to be back at HP, and who I don't have anything to say to, because I'm not a dum-dum, and I don't want to be around mediocre minds who want to betray themselves, which is what they're already doing, and look me in the face and tell me that they know what they're talking about. But yeah, it's really sad. I did know 3D, 4D would not be budging, but I didn't realize just well, until I did. So now that I do know, again, let us honor our brothers and sisters. They all will make a choice, and if they choose self-loathing, gut-wrench, torn apart, and so pseudo-aliveness, their maladaptive patterns of behavior, inner-outer critic, drinking, drugging, fucking, using dinosaur ancient ways, and continuing to manipulate their words and say, God doesn't need science. Yeah, we don't. He doesn't need science. In the meantime, though, science proves that we all have the kingdom of God within us and the seed of enlightenment. So two enlightened ones spoke those words, and we have science who proves it. The only ones who seem to not be on board with getting the actual body-mind connected are the same ones who, well, this is a song that doesn't end, and it goes on and on, my friends. Thanks for stopping by. Let anybody know who wants to actually do personal and spiritual growth and hang out with mystics and spiritual ones who like sciences too, to come on over. We'll have more stories, and when we have our tiers, I will be looking into organizing, in addition to digital content, I'm going to have to sit with my lovely guides as well, just double check with them how they want me to bring forth for the spiritual. spiritual group. And so, again, thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.